Well, there's a lot of competition for talent, for true talent. That comes as a surprise to a lot of students, but it's interesting if you talk to another creative director or another person who's involved in hiring talent for an agency or hiring creatives, is that they will tell you, they'll most likely tell you that there are very few jobs and very few great people for those jobs. So as a student, it's really important for you to show a few characteristics. First of all, a good portfolio is very interesting. I find that in an internship you really learn a person. We've had people who've come in here with pretty weak portfolios, and I'll tell you why we hired them, and then we've had people come in with quite strong portfolios, and I can tell you why we haven't hired them. Now there's always a distinction you have to make. I mean, we've had to let a few good ones go. We had a great writer here a year ago. I wish we could have hired him and someone else got him. He did his internship and we tried to extend it as much as we could, but eventually we just didn't have that position at the time. I'd still love to have him back. So you have to let a few go. But when you talk about someone who comes in with a strong portfolio, you need to know that that's their work. You also need to know that that's the work that they were able to do in more of a commercial setting. Because we're a creative shop. We need to be producing work at all times. So if we have someone who's productive and talented at the same time, it's very important. Being productive often means having a hell of a work ethic. The real stars here are people who aren't afraid to put in a 24-hour shift. But in the same way, they're also the people who have the talent to come up with things that are just great and original and inspiring and new and are a real claim about a product. Those kind of people, they're valuable. It's not just their work ethic, it's their understanding of how the business works. So when people come in with that, that's great. If they come in and they feel, well, I worked long and hard on my portfolio and this is an end point, they're mistaken. Portfolio is just a part of the qualifications to get in where we start. I truly believe that people who are really engaged in whatever job they do were interested in that when they were 8 or 9 years old, before they turned into adults. So the makers are the people who really have their ideas and then want to keep crafting them because they feel like they're playing. One of my guys said recently that he loves his job because he feels like he goes to kindergarten every day. And I think that's very powerful.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about the Lotus Awards?
Sure.
I noticed that just from studying the WIN brief, you guys won a lot of design awards, like for branding and logo creation and stuff.
Yeah.
What makes you guys strong in that area? Like in terms of design, what kind of philosophies do you have that foster good creativity there?
We use the same filters that we use on advertising creative for our design. So we use a kind of an aggregating piece. You've probably seen it in different forms, but we call it spring, which is that the design has to be simple and it has to be in the realm of possibility for the client. And it has to be truthful, it has to be inspiring, it has to be new, and it has to be a genuine claim. So all those things that we do in advertising, and often it has to be shareable. Those things work in design. I've always had kind of a hang-up about design. I'm a copywriter by trade, so designers probably hate me for this, but I always find that there's two kinds of designs. There's designs that are pretty, and then there are designs that convey an idea. We really believe that everything that we design here ought to be conveying an idea that is related to either a benefit of the brand or the product, or it goes with the values of the brand or the product, and the design should demonstrate that. Expand on what we don't hire.
That's okay, yeah.
You know this again. We try to be very gentle with feedback, and I always find this is the thing: is we hire juniors. Our mission statement at Spring is grow, and that means grow our business and but mainly grow our people. We really believe that our culture is about growing our people. One of the hallmarks of success in this business is being able to take feedback as something positive and not take it personally. As a creative person, that's very difficult to absorb because if you feel, a lot of people associate creativity with a childlike notion within them, which is really powerful. However, no kid ever brought a piece of artwork to their parent unless they had an evil parent. It had a parent who was a creative director. So the sense of rejection around creativity can be a very interesting sensation to experience. It's probably taken me 20 years to get over it myself. And I still, even when I'm writing copy, I get feedback that I don't like about the copy. I can find it grinding me emotionally.
Do you find people are really defensive when it comes?
Oh, yeah. I have a designer here, Sean, who's just terrific. And I remember when he first started to say himself, and the feedback from him was painful. And because he's very good and he's very dedicated, he works very hard, and he puts his heart into his work, that's of great quality. And to have, to receive feedback, which is your idea isn't very good, often sounds to a student or someone who's beginning as creative as, you suck and you're unworthy of this business. We try to be very gentle with people when we give them feedback, but if they feel very beaten down by that, it's really hard on them in their development. I would say that any student who's getting into this business, anybody who wants to succeed in this business, has to recognize that feedback is the most positive aspect of it. The more feedback you get, the better you get, and the more you're able to kill your babies, the happier you become.
I've been reading a few articles just by happenstance today about Generation Y, and the idea that there's this whole group of people.
Everybody gets a fucking medal.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right.
And coupled with a recession that has kind of stolen adulthood from these people because they don't. There's no opportunity, even for the people who are talented.
Yeah.
So it's a whole generation of people who think they can do anything they want, but really can't do anything they want.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to Generation Yers?
Go to a trade school. It's easy to make the excuse that Generation Y doesn't have the opportunities, and that Generation Y was brought up with too much given to them. And I find both of those things should be untrue. I find that the kids that were curious and allowed to explore and used the tools that have been available to them to their utmost have become successful in this business. The ones that were who were set up to be disappointed, were bound to be disappointed anyways. We live in Vancouver, we live in a real bubble. There is still an absorption rate for great talent, where in other places there isn't.
Cool.
Sorry for another long answer.
No, long answers, like I said, are great. We want content. We want good content. So that's why we interview CDs, because you get good content. What would you say is the most interesting piece of work being done outside of Spring that you've seen lately? You were at the awards show. What did you like?
I love all of the work. I like the work that Blast Radius was awarded for. I like the web film stuff. We had a web film entered that we didn't merit on. We did get silver at ACC for it. But I like the idea of storytelling returning to the web in a way that people can absorb it. Or actually not returning to the web. Storytelling being developed as a function of the web, where people can dig deeper into the experiences and the things that a brand or a given product is doing at their own rate. I think it accepts the idea that we live in an age where people choose their information. So creating things that have to live on the basis of the choices that our consumers make is far more interesting than invasive advertising. So that's really turning me on right now.
Cool.
If we had the clients and we had the space to do it, and maybe we'll get there. I would love to be creating more content that people choose to consume rather than have forced upon them as advertising. The opposite of a billboard. I've got one for you.
Sure, yeah. Ask us a question.
Okay. I'd like to share with these guys, how do you get in to see a CD? And I'll tell you how not to.
Okay.
Don't send me an email. And I'm sure I can make this as a blanket statement. Okay? I receive a large number of applications or emails and the odd telephone call from aspiring creatives. I receive those all the time, every day. I'm sure everybody does. Competition is really fierce. You have to recognize that if you want to get through to a person in this position, you need to find a way to do that is as interesting as your career might be, is as interesting and as important to you as this job might be. Do not depend on an email to make any difference, because everyone receives hundreds of them every day. They're unimportant. They're uninteresting. Use the mail. Use a courier. Show up on your own. Have something important and interesting to do or to say. And which is an example of who you might be as a person and why you might be worth talking to. Talking to someone is something that most people avoid, and that happens on both sides of the equation. Students are afraid to strip themselves naked in front of a person who might have a lot to do with their career in the future and find out whether they're any good or not. They're afraid of themselves. And creative directors don't have the time and don't want to break any hearts. I find one of the most excruciating experiences is to sit with someone where the meeting means everything to them and their portfolio means very little to me, whether it's good or not, because I might not have a job and they might be 1/10 of the way there with their portfolio. Those are awkward things. Be ready and make sure you get in and don't take it personally.
It's an interesting analogy. I mean, the job seeker is trying to cut through clutter in the same way that they might be doing if they were to get hired. They're trying to wade through, the billion emails.
Yeah.
So how do you cut through that?
I'll say this right to camera. If you're great, I want to meet you. I'm looking for you. You have to find a way to look for me. So that's kind of how it is.